Well, it's official. Myles Garrett has requested a trade. Let's talk about my top three picks for where I think he will end up. What's up, everyone? It is Josh here from No Buts About It. Just a few hours ago, Myles Garrett requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, and we knew that this might be coming. It had been rumored near the end of the regular season that he was going to sit down with team leadership, the front office, see what their plan was for the future to not go into a complete rebuild, and then he would make his decision. Apparently, those meetings happened, and he wasn't a huge fan of their plan because he posted on X. As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. If it has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. End quotes. So obviously, Myles Garrett is well on his way to being a Hall of Famer. I think everyone pretty much would acknowledge that. Anyone who's ever watched him play, and he's a reigning Defensive Player of the Year currently. That award hasn't been given out yet, so he still is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. And every team wants it, understandably so. And it's really tempting for me to just say, pair him up with Trey Hendrickson. Send him down the interstate to Cincinnati, Ohio. Pair him up with Trey Hendrickson, and let's go win a Super Bowl together. However, I wanted to try to be somewhat realistic when I made this video. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to trade him in division. Um, then on top of that, Myles Garrett also has a cap hit of $20 million the next 2 years. So I just don't think that that's a move the Bengals are going to make. I don't think that's a move the Cleveland Browns would make. Right now, apparently, the Cleveland Browns aren't even really taking in phone calls, allegedly. Apparently, some teams have already, thrown everything at them and they've just kind of shot it down. But obviously, Cleveland Browns aren't super competitive with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Probably aren't going to be competitive with whoever they draft here in the next 2 years. So Myles Garrett wants out. Let's see who should go after him on a serious note. So first of all, looking at the possible teams, I'll do some honorable mentions. And that is the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams are obviously playoff teams. It's yet to be seen what's going to happen with the quarterback position in Minnesota. But I think Minnesota already has a strong start with their pass rush. And they have Dallas Turner. They have a lot of those pieces already on that defensive line. I don't think that this is the trade they necessarily need to make to further their goals of winning a Super Bowl. And I get why Vikings fans want him. I want him as a Bengals fan, even though I know it's not realistic. But I just don't think the Minnesota Vikings are going to go after Myles Garrett, or really need him. I mean, every team's going to improve with Myles Garrett, but that's not the spot where the Minnesota Vikings need to improve. And they aren't my best pick. Also, the Philadelphia Eagles, they draft really well at this position. So I don't necessarily think that you need to go and trade away your draft picks and bring in a 30-year-old star. Don't get me wrong for this guy. Obviously, some things might change. Brandon Graham might retire. There's some other stuff that might happen with that Philadelphia Eagles defense as well. But I think as it stands right now, Philadelphia would rather just keep that draft capital, and you can just draft guys to replace Brandon Graham if you need to, rather than getting yourself into a $50 million hole these next 2 years with Myles Garrett and trading away that draft capital as well, because it's going to be a lot to trade away to get Myles Garrett. The Cleveland Browns aren't going to just give him away. So that's kind of why I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are necessarily a great pick for him as well, despite the fact that they would be competitive and obviously are. They're in the Super Bowl this year. But here are my top three teams. The teams that I think he could go to. And starting off, the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo Bills have been playoff contenders, Super Bowl contenders for, it seems like, forever at this point. Maybe the last like 5 years at least. Josh Allen, as long as he's the quarterback, they are going to be in Super Bowl contention. And that defense was a huge part of their team when Josh Allen was getting into their prime. Now, this year, their defense kind of took a step back. They were still good, don't get me wrong, but they took a step back. And the defensive line was really the main part of that, but I think it could also improve. I think that the defensive line got good pressures. AJ Epinesa was good. Ed Oliver is great. Greg Rousseau is a guy who I love. I think he's fantastic, and he doesn't get enough praises. He's great at putting pressures on the quarterback. But imagine putting him with Myles Garrett, right? Again, AJ Epinesa is great, but you could then have a rotational defensive end if you wanted, and it would be effective. And then don't even get me started on adding Ed Oliver into this mix. This is a move that I could see the Buffalo Bills trying to make. It would get him out of division. It would elevate their defense automatically. It would just be a great move for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. Plus, Sean McDermott is a very respected defensive-minded coach, and I could see that being a pull for Myles Garrett as well. I just don't know if they necessarily have the draft capital at this time to give up for Myles Garrett, considering the fact they still have some pieces on their team they need to rebuild, specifically on defense. And they probably also need another wide receiver, maybe a few other offensive weapons. But they made do with what they had and became competitors in the AFC, and will continue to be so, I believe. Okay, so next up, the Washington Commanders. That team has done what no one really thought that they were going to be able to do in one season. Dan Quinn is probably one of the most highly respected defensive-minded coaches in the NFL. He's up there with Sean McDermott. And what he did in 1 year as head coach with the Washington Commanders has been absolutely insane. And Jaden Daniels is playing great. That offense is moving. It looks like Cliff Kingsbury is going to stay as the offensive coordinator in Washington. And the league has taken notice. This team is going to be competitive for the foreseeable future with Jaden Daniels, with Terry McLaurin. They've got some pieces. They've got the guys that can make the run. Jonathan Allen has been there forever, and assuming he stays and sticks around, I don't know why he would leave all of a sudden. Pairing him up with Myles Garrett, that's another dangerous move. All these teams that I picked already have pass rushers in place, but they're doing the whole thing by themselves for the most part. And so adding Myles Garrett is going to help elevate that pass rush. It's going to help improve that defense. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, Washington really needs to improve their secondary. They need help at cornerback and safety, which is true. Don't get me wrong. But you know what really helps cornerbacks and safeties is when they don't have to run around the entire time chasing their guys in man coverage because the quarterback's already on the ground. And having Myles Garrett and Jonathan Allen is going to put that pressure on quarterbacks and make the cornerback and safeties' jobs easier, even if they aren't necessarily the best in the league. So that's why I think you can either try to bring in a bunch of different cornerbacks and safeties and improve that, or you could just bring in Myles Garrett and it elevates the whole defense together. So I think that is a great option for Myles Garrett. They've got a lot of their pieces already in place as well. They've drafted really well with what they had this past year, and I could see them making some more free agency moves as well. However, my number one overall pick. People have said I'm crazy. I have no idea what Dion's thoughts are on this. Some people think this is wild. I don't know why they think it's wild, but I have no idea what Dion thinks. Maybe Dion doesn't want this, but I think Myles Garrett to the Detroit Lions would be a great move. The reason I think that is they lost. They lost to the Washington Commanders this year in the playoffs, but they're still Super Bowl contenders. And the reason they lost was because their quarterback didn't play well. Jared Goff did not play well against the Washington Commanders. He fell off. Um, they also have lost like their entire coaching staff. So they're going to be needing a rebuild. They need a little bit of a morale boost, maybe, with all these new guys coming out. Maybe the with Aaron Glenn leaving, they want a new kind of face to kind of drive this team, to motivate this team. Bring in a veteran presence, Myles Garrett, who wants to win. That's all Myles Garrett wants. That's the whole reason we're talking about this, is that he wants to win a Super Bowl. That's the Detroit Lions' goal, to win a Super Bowl. And they're going in hard and heavy with that. So Myles Garrett to the Detroit Lions just makes sense to me. They have the same goals. They've been held back by similar things. And now they both just want to do whatever it takes to get to the big game. And I know they have Aiden Hutchinson already. They have Aiden Hutchinson already. Aiden Hutchinson is great. You guys know I love Aiden Hutchinson. I talk about him all the time. But Aiden Hutchinson, even when he was healthy, that pass rush wasn't that great. They struggled at times. That was the worst part of their defense. Aaron Glenn just couldn't get that figured out. He got it figured out a little bit with kind of near the end of the season with the plug and play guys he had to use, but Aiden Hutchinson can't do it all on his own. And then, you know what? We already have seen the Cleveland Browns bring in guys we've already seen the Detroit Lions bring in guys from the Cleveland Browns. Zadarius Smith, a move that I loved. I thought that this was a fantastic move when it happened. They brought him in to replace Aiden Hutchinson. And in my opinion, it worked pretty well. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson is really hard to replace, but Zadarius Smith did help improve that pass rush. He's already worked alongside Myles Garrett. Put Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and Aiden Hutchinson next to each other. Get them all in a rotation. Oh my gosh, you have a heck of a defensive end room. That is a great room to be working with for the Detroit Lions, and that already gets them into a spot way higher than what they were already last year on defense. And Jared Goff playing poorly, that's just a fluke game. It's unfortunate that it happened in the Washington Commanders game, but Jared Goff, we've seen what he can do. He does have his bad games. He's had his bad games, and the defense has had to carry. He's had games where he had to carry too, though. And it's just unfortunate how it worked out against the Washington Commanders. But I really think if you bring in Myles Garrett to the Detroit Lions, it elevates that defensive line, and it allows Jared Goff to not have to be the hero. It allows the offense to not have to be the whole team. And that defense will have great starting blocks for their next defensive coordinator. And the younger guys on the team will feel confident in what they have working for them. Myles Garrett wants a Super Bowl. Detroit Lions want a Super Bowl. It just makes sense. Let me know what you think below. Let me know what team do you think Myles Garrett should go to realistically? Like, don't just tell me like he's going to, the Chicago Bears. It's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. He wants to go to a team that is already a Super Bowl contender. He wants to get a Super Bowl on his resume. So let me know what team you think he should go to for that. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm working on some other stuff. I just finished recording a prospect video that will come out soon. Chuss is working on some stuff. Hopefully, we'll get a full episode out this week. Obviously, the Super Bowl's coming up. We got all sorts of stuff we're doing. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Until next time, go do something nice for someone. The world needs it right now. The world needs more nice people. So go be that nice person.